did everybody see? I guess I haven't been following this super closely because I'm not like a mega fan. But like a big donor backed out, or the guy who's like one of the big money guys for the MLS thing. And then something else has now happened too, and it kind of took our sure shot, Sacramento becoming an MLS team.
Sports ball. Sport. Let me take this, guys. Let me take this as the sport correspondent.
To be fair, you are a soccer guy, though.
I am, and I know this whole story very well, actually.
Okay, good. Yes.
Oh, great, because
I follow professional soccer extremely closely. The Whale, as it's called, which is the main investor for the team, the future MLS team.
Is that a soccer term or a
it's a sports term? It's a financial term often used in sports. The Whale is sort of the if you're an Ahab looking for that big investor, that's the one person that all the other smaller investors rally around for you to actually get your arena and your team and all.
So it's
things.
Also like an aquatic term.
Sure. So the Whale is Ron
Definitely
Burkle.
Aquatic.
Yes. Are we finished there?
All right. That joke is done. Dave, please continue.
His name is Ron Burkle, folks. And he in part owns, I believe, the Pittsburgh Penguins, another aquatic term.
Aquatics.
And there's a huge confluence of aquatics and sports and Ron Burkle. But anyway, he, due to whatever reasons, this has actually been in the rumor mill for a while in the Sacramento business world. People knew that MLS was probably on the way out. And then at the end of last week, Ron Burkle, the Whale, somehow found himself free of Darrell Steinberg as Captain Ahab from his harpoon. And Burkle is swimming off into the sunset now. And so it looks increasingly like Sacramento is in trouble getting an MLS team. They will need to find another super rich investor who we can dupe into investing in this project.
Agent Squillian, are you listening?
Agent Squillian, you're number one on our list.
Well, I bought a bunch of shares in Nokia when that GameStop thing was happening, and I'm really down right now, but I'm expecting that to turn around any second. So when my Nokia shares pay off, Darrell, baby, get after me. We can talk.
Sheriff Skylar Henry.
Sheriff Skylar Henry, the man who brought MLS back to Sacramento.
Once you hit that 200 million mark, then call Darrell up.
Well, Darrell can call me. I think I'm the
at
one
that
who
point.
Needs to be
I guess he
here.
will be calling you. That's a good point. He's certainly not calling me right now. And then the beginning of this week, after a weekend of us thinking, well, there goes Ron Burkle swimming off, blowing out his blowhole. Today, I believe it was the beginning of this week, the head of Sac Republic Football Club has stepped down. So it's like the CEO and COO, something like that. So things are not looking good for MLS in Sacramento. As a big soccer fan, I'm not that mad. Should I be mad? I don't know. I kind of like us as a USL club city. The biggest bummer to me is that we won't have an NWSL team, and it was looking like we were going to have women's professional soccer here in Sacramento, and that was super exciting for me because I'm a big fan of U.S. women's national soccer, and it would have been cool to have some of their players here in Sacramento. But
I think I'm neutral about it. It is a bummer because I know people were looking forward to it, and I want people to be happy and have the things that make them happy. But I don't know, I'm still not past the part where I feel like every time we do something like this, it's just everybody who lives here's rents going up so that rich people can get richer. And I can't until there's a better way to go about that and kind of have that rising tide raise all the boats up. I'm not really going to be pumped about shit like the rail yards and new businesses going in there or whatever.
Well, especially since we're still feeling all the scars of them selling our city out for the Kings, right?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
Totally.
we're still hurting.
Exactly.
And we're
Yeah,
still
I mean,
footing
we've
that bill.
repeatedly now. I mean, if this sort of happened, right, it's just like this repeated harm that communities are feeling as a result of capitalism and putting sports over people.
Right. Especially because like when we needed, a place to open up warming shelters when the storm was happening,
Right.
Golden One was floated as an option, and we were told that they couldn't be an option because on occasion rich people needed to come there and play a game. And if ever there was yeah, and like we were just like, oh, okay, that sounds reasonable. On occasion, people who are more than amply housed need to come here and play a game for our entertainment, and that trumps the ability of people to actually have a place to sleep at night that's safe and out of the elements. I'm also not that sad because hearkening back a year ago on Wednesday, was that when the election was? There was a ballot measure to set aside 2.5% of the city's budget for youth, which you would think that only monsters would go against. But the monsters in our midst include basically all the folks who get lots of money from our budget, including Kevin Nagel, the CEO of the Sac Republic. And then what I think was most insulting to many Sacramentans was the fact that our budget, which was passed early for 2020 and 2021 on May 12th instead of mid-June and had really very little input from anyone else, the front cover is a rendering of what would be the MLS soccer stadium, as if that should be the priority for how we spend all of our money. I just thought that there was a level of like tone deafness to whoever decided that the city's budget in the middle of a global pandemic.
Oh, that's good.
Be an image of another like stadium that we don't need while we're not actively meeting the needs of people who live in this community. That's rich.
Well, and that most of us can't afford to go to anyway. Like to go to, the only Kings games I've ever gone to is when I've been given tickets.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Same.
the thing. With Republic FC as a USL Pro team, more people can afford to go to games. If they were to become an MLS team, where, by the way, we have to pay the owners of Major League Soccer hundreds of millions of dollars just to get into MLS, suddenly our ticket prices are just going to catapult up. Not only that, but the community benefits agreement for the rail yards for this whole project was supposed to have all of this low-income housing, and little by little, these developers chipped away at it and chipped away at it and chipped away at it until there's really no affordable housing in it to really speak of. So, I mean, again, talk about monsters. It's monstrous to me that a city prioritizes something like this when, as we will learn, people are literally dying in our streets every week. And, back to the proposed tax from last year that was supposed to go to our youth, I can tell you one person who was against it, and that would be Mayor Darrell Steinberg.
This is a classic Sacramento tale.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. All the players are there. They're all doing what they do.
But what's crazy is like this is a tale that keeps on being told like over and over. The mayor may change, but the story's still the same. Like, when are we gonna stop? When are we gonna stop accepting it?
That is a great question.
What? I mean, so it sounds like change needs to happen. And who only loses elections is Steve Maviglio. So maybe if he starts winning, maybe if he wins an election here and there, things will start looking up around here.
I think you're onto something.
Love it.
All right.
Well, now that we've solved that problem,
Hope and change.
Problem
2022.
solved. Boom.
Start the show.
Let's do it.
Problem solved.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
You have Kempa.
And you have Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
That's a full house. On top of the full house, we have a very good friend of the show who's actually been on twice. Only the real ones know this, but she was on back during the Anthony Sino era on the podcast, as well as more recently to discuss her work as an elected official. But today we have our friend Tamika L'Ecluse on, and you are here in the capacity of VP of the board of Sacramento Investment without Displacement. How you doing today, first of all?
I'm good.
It feels just generally these days. But I'm really excited to have you on. We're discussing sort of a thorny topic that I think can be a little tough for some folks to understand. So, you know, to me, this is a classic sort of David Goliath story, the people versus a corporation and folks just trying to protect their neighborhood and maintain their livelihood. And correct me if I'm wrong there. So today we're going to discuss the proposed Aggie Square over in, I guess, what you would call that Oak Park area?
It's technically Tahoe Park, but the impact area is Oak Park, Tahoe Park, Colonial Heights, Lawrence Park, basically 95817, 20, and 24.
Okay. We're going to be discussing this proposal, which really they are trying to get this moving now-ish, but it appears that Sacramento Investment without Displacement has been pushing back on this. So first of all, before we get into Aggie Square, tell me briefly what SIWD is and what your MO is. Why do you exist?
So Sacramento Investment without Displacement is a group of folks who represent community organizations, different interests. And we basically came together to be a community advocacy group for community benefits agreements when big developments are coming into Sacramento. So we basically, you know, watch for these developments, and we you know, come together and we draft our points, what we want, you know, what we want to ask and what we want to demand, really, what we want to see for community members. And so I've been a part, I started going to SAC IWD meetings summer of 2019.
Okay.
So, and I have some property in Oak Park. And so, and, you know, we have some folks that we know and love that we are fighting for and trying to protect. So I'm trying to keep Oak Park affordable for everyone.
Great. And what are some of the member groups, orgs that are a part of SIWD?
Yeah, so we have Sacramento ACT, Sacramento Housing Alliance.
So that's area congregations together.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, the Sacramento area congregations together. ECOS, the Environmental Council of Sacramento. We have United Latinos. They're working on some projects to test the air quality in Natomas and in Tahoe Park. And so we're hoping that, you know, some of those results can really help support our fight for environmental justice in that impact area that I mentioned earlier. We also have members of the Oak Park Neighborhood Association, members of the Tahoe Park Neighborhood Association, the Community Land Trust, and various organizations. AFSCME, Local 3299. We have
which is labor. I think I saw a couple like real grassroots nonprofits on there too. There might be more than we can like list off today. I think I saw ACE on there. Is that correct?
Yep, ACE comes and ACE is joined, and then we just I just met with Sunrise Sacramento to see, you know, to see if they were willing to join.
Great.
And we're still, you know, just building this foundation, building healthy communities is a part out of the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative. And so when we do our canvassing, we launch from there, right in the heart of Oak Park.
That's great. This seems like, and it seems like something that we've been talking about for a long time on this show. It's a real amalgam of a lot of really great folks doing really great things, coming together and focusing on one thing to put all the people power they can behind it. Let's move on to sort of this challenge that you know you are having with this Aggie Square proposed development. First, what is the Aggie Square development, and then we can get into the drama.
Yeah, so Aggie Square is going to be a big campus at the UC Davis Medical Center. Basically, like you take that, I don't know if you know the Oak Park, Tahoe Park, Broadway, Stockton corridor very well, but you take the area between Shriners and Jack in the Box, and you go into Fairgrounds. That's Aggie Square. And so, go ahead.
Very large. It's a huge development project, right? Like, I don't want to get the number wrong, but like $1 billion-ish is that?
$1.1 billion,
It's
I think.
supposed
That's
to
what
be
I had read.
$5 billion, yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is a big deal. And, you know, this has major players involved, including huge healthcare companies, right? And then, of course, local politicians coming together to try to make this happen. Where does the challenge come in with community members who are watching this happen? People are concerned about this, right?
Yeah, well, people are concerned about displacement, and people are concerned about the environmental impacts, which they have a right to be, right? Because that's you know that's their everyday life. So the fact that the city of Sacramento has assisted, not just assisted, but is protecting UC Davis from meeting their environmental and housing affordability requirements set by law, we have a problem. The community that we represent and that we are part of has a problem.
Yeah. So
and they're using our tax dollars to fight us. Like we can talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
Dollars.
So, but the first to begin is UC Davis is sort of crushing this through. As this was happening, were they meeting with members of the community? Were they discussing a robust community benefits agreement, or meeting actual CEQA, meeting public health pollution standards?
Well, at first, UC Davis did not want to work with us. And so we were working primarily with the council members and the mayor. And so when it was getting, it was in December, right before Christmas time, and the window for you to file, your CEQA writ, WRIT, it was expiring. And so the day it expired, we filed 11:15 that morning. And so, the city, even though we were in the talks and trying to get this community benefits agreement, the city felt threatened, and they said that they would no longer be working with us. But our hands were tied. I mean, if we were not to file, then we wouldn't have been able to now. If something happened down the line and people were getting sick or asthma rates were going up, UC Davis isn't accepting Medi-Cal patients that they're supposed to, like all of these things are happening. We would have missed that opportunity if we hadn't filed.
Okay, so I'm hearing that UC Davis is ignoring you, not meeting with you about meeting these concerns about a, CBA or about meeting CEQA standards. You're hitting a deadline where, listen, we got to file something now, even if they're ignoring us, because if we don't file it now, then our hands are tied. So SIWD files basically is suing the right word?
So it's basically saying, hey, we see that you are not following the rules that you're supposed to follow.
Yep.
And so we can start talking about how you're going to follow those rules, and we can, you know, start having those discussions, or we can see you in court.
And this seems like a very straightforward, reasonable thing to do, given what's at stake for the members of your communities, right?
Mhm.
And once you file that, I believe almost concurrently, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the local 3299, which, as you mentioned, they are a part of this sort of amalgam of groups that is fighting for the people in the area. They filed a similar writ, correct? And around this time, Mayor Steinberg comes out, Mayor of Sacramento, friend of the show, Master of Crows, comes out and says, hey, I don't like that they're filing this writ. Why would he, like, what is his logic there? Like, I've been trying, when I read this, I'm trying to figure out his logic.
I don't know his logic, but I know his words. And his words, the narrative that the city is trying to push is that we're trying to stop this project. That's the narrative. But the reality is we're trying to make it better, and we're trying to hold people accountable. You know, you can't just come into Sacramento, be given the key, you know, be given a bunch of money that are tax people's dollars and do what you want at the expense of neighborhoods who have generations of exploitation, you know, in their bones.
Right.
I saw another quote by, it was somebody either with a building group or a business group claiming that, you know, you wanted to kill jobs. You didn't care about the people's jobs.
That's what they always say, right?
Which is
It's
absurd.
like, oh, jobs,
way to
there's
divide
thousands of
us.
jobs.
Yeah.
Well, and
Right.
they know that we have unions a part of our group too, right? That's just that's narrative to divide us.
Mhm.
But it's not going to work because, you know, we see, what is that? The forest for the trees or something.
Yeah.
And we've been down this road before. You know, we know when the city wants to give, you know, this huge rolling out the red carpet, you know, to for-profit developers. Not talking about the affordable. I'm talking specifically about, you know, this project, these developers, the UC Regents, and the folks who are, you know, paying our rent and paying our mortgage and living on the streets and paying our city taxes and all that good stuff, you know, we're the ones who get asked, oh, so are we ready to raise the sales tax so we can pay for this? Oh, are you guys ready, you know, to have, you know, certain services or things cut because we didn't plan well? Like, we're tired of it. And the fact that the city of Sacramento would go from being on the outside to jumping in and being a co-defendant a couple weeks ago is appalling.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So
okay.
A week ago, right, the end of February, the city decides to basically gather together their city attorneys to use our tax dollars as Sacramento residents to fight against
Sacramento residents. Yes, this is true.
Who are residents by and large in more marginalized communities. They're basically fighting against marginalized residents who, as you were saying, like, they're the ones who pay for this city. You know, these sales taxes that they put on us, that's regressive. That is a burden on the lower classes. So they're already burdening them there. And then they're using that money that they burden them with to sue them, to fight them when they're trying to just fight for themselves. It infuriates me that Darrell Steinberg walks around, and like, we have a number of, I'm sure we all have a number of mutual friends with him, that he walks around and he can't believe that people don't think he's progressive. This is why you can't behave like this.
Well, he's always like, oh, go ahead.
Well, so the city was like, look, you know, we're going to be the ones to hold UC Davis responsible. Like, when we were talking, the city's like, no. We're the ones who are going to hold UC Davis responsible. Like, you come and you do this community benefits with us, and we'll make sure that they do the right thing. But
Great.
You know, if we had listened to that and not filed, guess what? The city is showing us who they are. They had no intention of holding UC Davis accountable. Why would they be co-defendants? If you're trying to hold someone accountable, why are you trying to defend them? This makes no sense. And the city, the folks in the city need to see this and they need to know.
What makes me really angry about it is that the argument that has been presented on the other side is that, well, investment without displacement doesn't have standing, right? This is a coalition of folks, but who gave them the authority to be the guardians of these particular neighborhoods? And so that's why the city has consistently tried to essentially like work with the group, but at the same time undercut the authority, because they literally just don't think that these community organizations should be endowed with this level of responsibility. And I think that first of all, that's the antithesis of, you know, being progressive in terms of really wanting to engage longstanding organizations in this community. What you're telling me is that the unions and the churches and other faith communities and building healthy communities and all these folks don't have standing in these neighborhoods. Like, so who better than them? And my question has been, you know, if not them, then why, right? Like, because that, to me, the standing argument doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I actually think that there's a great way to do some community engagement here. If you wanted to say, look, we want to poll the residents and find out what they want, and then that's what we're gonna use as our, you know, North Star for this. Do it. Spend that, like, city, if you're gonna step in and be productive, but don't step in and then say, we're really angry with everybody who wants better for us. That's not how this should work, right? Like, the community members are saying, we want better for the community because they're the ones who spend all the money. And so your answer should be, well, damn it, we'll try. Not, how dare you? Like, I literally don't understand the posturing of the city. And I think it is a really, really bad look and bad move to then join in the lawsuit as a party with UC Davis.
It's unconscionable. The big picture thing with it too. I mean, this is similar to what we were talking about with the rail yards in a way, where it's like, so I was reading, the friend or show favorite T Clift has an article about this in the Bee from September of last year, where she's basically, I think it opens with a family who lives in Oak Park, who's like looking at this new development coming in and basically just being like, oh shit, you know, like here, like, can I afford to live in my neighborhood? Will I be able to afford to live here in a year? I've lived here for decades and don't want to move. Which I think is a similar thing for, you know, people who, like with the rail yard project. And it was the same thing with the Golden One thing, where we're being told that it's like, oh, like there's all these jobs and all this opportunity coming in here. But all the people who live here can see is like this looming giant of like their rent hiking up to where they can't afford to live here anymore, and like the conditions of their neighborhoods being made to a point where they're not sustainable for them to live there anymore. And we're like, we get these things get announced, and then people are expected to be like, oh cool, yeah, great, new jobs, new campus, this is really good. But nobody can ever actually feel like that, because it's always a harbinger of doom whenever one of these things comes into the neighborhood. And it blows my mind that, like, with all the brains and all of the money, and like, I mean, I guess this is kind of a sweet summer child moment because it's not really blowing my mind, but it is like incredible that like nobody can figure out a way for like a cool thing, like a new campus or like a new arena to like be built in a way that the people who live in that neighborhood are like, oh, cool, there's a cool thing happening here. Like there's tens of thousands of brains working on this thing. There's billions of dollars floating around with this thing. And the people who are like planning it can't figure out a way to make it good news for the people who it's supposed to be good news for. And they never can. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. It blows my mind that we do this over and over and over again. And then guys like Steinberg are like, well, you know, because he wants this fucking thing, or sorry, Mickey, he wants this thing to go through. So he takes this attitude of like, well, how dare you stand in the way of progress in Sacramento? You know, like, oh, you hate Sacramento progress. It's like, no, man, like I want to see the city progress, but like it has to progress for the people who live here. And that is like that. I mean, that is an issue that is outlined really, really, really clearly with this Aggie Square thing and the neighborhoods around that.
It's the quiet part out loud, right? Like, who's this development really for? Because you're really showing us it's not for us. You're just trying to bring in money, and bring in folks, to pay the high prices, to make the market rate go skyrocket and be out of control. And you know what? We're tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go
Sorry.
ahead, Chen.
Just like so many like economic or community development projects, if these projects actually started by talking to the people in the neighborhood about what they need, about doing some like asset-based assessment of the community, and moving out of a space of like what's here, what's working, what is needed, like what does this community need to help bolster what is already happening here, that could make some rad projects, right? But like as long as you have people who are in rooms far away from the actual people that are going to be impacted, we're always going to end up in situations like this, like where time and time again more harm is going to be created and more economic like loss, right? Because what's happening now? Like
people on Stockton Boulevard are getting swept up. Their belongings and their stuff is getting taken away by the police and the street, the street team or whatever. And folks are being actively removed from places that they've been allowed to stay on Stockton Boulevard in preparation of, I guess, cleaning it up for this project. I don't know, but it's already showing us what it's designed to do. It's designed to displace. And if we don't stop that and put some and put some limitations and put some boundaries on that, then they will be successful. And we saw it in Baltimore. We see it. My family's from New York. I'm the only Californian here, but we saw, we see it in my family's from the Bronx. We saw it in Brooklyn. I was hanging out in Cobble Hill. And Quentin Tarantino walked down the street. I'm like, I'm in Cobble Hill. What are you doing? Everything has changed.
Crown Heights is unrecognizable now.
And all of it. Oh my goodness, all of it. I mean, even, my grandpa had a store over in the Bronx, across from the funeral home where everyone in my family gets buried by. And I mean, even some of the bodegas and stuff that we used to go to aren't even there. So things
and we
change.
don't want that to happen in the areas neighboring Aggie Square. We want people to be protected. We want the culture of that area, which is rich, which has an amazing history, to be preserved. And, to Shannon's point, UC Davis full on ignored the community. Not only that, the city ran defense for UC Davis, kept dragging folks along, hoping that they would just keep running defense until it was just too late. And now people are saying, no, you don't get to do that. We're going to fight that, which is what's exciting for this time. I think we're living in a moment where people are organized in a way that they haven't been in, 70 years, 100 years. Like it feels like something's happening, right? 60 maybe. And so it's heartening to see what folks like, SIWD are coming together and doing. And like, the answer to Skylar's point earlier is like, one of the best answers we've come up with in this capitalist hellscape is a robust community benefits agreement, but they refuse to do that. What these folks with all the power, all the monetary power, who think that we're not organized, continue to think that we're not organized, what they do is they say, listen, we're going to tell you what the CBA is and you're going to like it.
Right. Or they offer,
and
it's like,
if you don't like it, man, that sucks for you.
These guys are offering, what is it? like part of the deal is like what the quote is something like more than 700 housing units are part of the planning stages of this or a similar thing. 400 of them are marked to be affordable. So this is supposed to be a thing that is being offered to combat gentrification.
I wonder how big.
And it's supposed to bring in tens of thousands of people to that area.
Exactly. 400
And
affordable units,
the math doesn't
300
work out.
apparently unaffordable units to combat tens of thousands of people moving in here.
And their cars.
Right.
And their cars.
Right. And so, and that's what you get, right? I mean, that's like the city's line is like, oh, like we're going to use this to, you know, oh, we can like, you know, use some of the X, Y, and Z revenue to like provide housing for people who need it or to subsidize rent for people who are of a lower income. But it's like, and it's always, I don't know, like we said earlier, it's always the exact same thing. These guys always say the exact same things, but they never follow through on it. And everybody at this point is kind of like, all right, man, like we know you're not going to do it. What is Steinberg's on this Zoom call says, we can have it all. We can have job creation and new industries at the same time. And at the same time, keep the neighborhoods affordable. Like,
and not if you don't have those protections in place.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not if you don't have those.
And it's so clear that you don't care about that stuff. You don't care about keeping the neighborhood of, if you like think about how different this city would look on a fundamental level if Darrell Steinberg gave even 1% of a word I can't say on the radio edit of this show about keeping neighborhoods affordable.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Tamika, I thank you to you and to everybody with SIWD for the work you're doing, and for everybody with AFSME 3299. I've never tried to pronounce that before. What if somebody wants to help? If somebody wants to help you fight back, what is something they can do? And also after that, what are the next steps in this battle?
Well, we do need some help with our legal fund, of course. We have a GoFundMe for that. You can go to our website, SIWD.org. You can find out more about Aggie Square. You can donate. You can find out a little bit more about the organizations that are a part. And we're really looking for folks to join us. We'll be canvassing from Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative on Sunday at 10. Ooh, I'm gonna have to check. Saturday or Sunday at 10. We've talked about Saturdays, but last time we did Sunday. So definitely, look us up on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, go to our website. We'll have our new flyer up for canvassing this weekend on there. And yeah, we could definitely, we just need support. The more community voices, of course, the better. Half the folks that are on our calls are in our groups, they live in Oak Park, or their members live in Oak Park, in Tahoe Park, in Curtis Park, or not Curtis Park, Colonial Heights, or Elmhurst. Lawrence Park. I went canvassing. I was walking around in Lawrence Park a couple weeks ago, and a lot of those folks have no idea. And there's one woman who owns all the duplexes around Lawrence Park, and she owns a building on Stockton Boulevard. You think she told her tenants about Aggie Square? I talked to a couple of them, and none of them know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so so now people know how to get involved and find you and help support your efforts. What are the next steps here?
Right.
Well, the city signed on to be a defendant. I signed on saying, all right, you're the defendant, and now we'll see where the next steps are. But we're hoping that we can work through this with UC Davis. Maybe Steinberg and city leaders will show how vulnerable these big developments are when you're given everything and a kitchen sink to these folks who are coming in Sacramento, and how vulnerable we really are when they don't follow through. Like, the MLS thing should be a lesson
Yes.
It really should.
Yeah. I think that's really, really poignant. And I think that's a good note to end on. I would add as a point of call to action to any listener, reach out to your city council member, tell them that you do not approve of the city signing off on this. Personally, I want whoever's responsible for this, for them getting signed on to fighting the residents of the city. I want them fired. But you know, I'll leave it up to anybody else on what other words you want to use in your emails to your council member. You can use words that we can't use on this episode. You know, up to you.
They're used to it too.
Yeah, exactly. They've
nice
got
to
a thick
Katie.
skin, right? Well, yeah, I mean, definitely be nice to Katie and yeah. But
I will hold everyone accountable.
And my man Laloe. Nobody be mean to Sean Laloe.
I was gonna say use some extra words for Sean. Sean, baby.
You know I live in District 2, right?
Do you?
I do.
Oh, no.
I couldn't afford to buy. I couldn't afford to stay in Oak Park.
Well,
you know that's okay.
something.
He has 4 years.
At least you live in District 2. That's something we can't say about Sean. So on to the next topic, folks.
Dang.
Let's talk about something a little more serious.
Detected.
What?
So no lies detected. I mean,
why isn't
when
the
you're
B
on, you're
on?
on.
Why isn't the B on this? Like, why? Sean, we do not live here, guys.
They're dealing with too much other shit.
Monday episode.
I feel like this is really easy for us to like just prove with taxes, right? Because at some point he is going to have to declare where his like work from home office has been this entire pandemic, and it's certainly not in District 2. So
not with that mantelpiece I saw. No.
Whatever property he has there, I don't know.
Yeah, but you'd have to claim then that you were working out of that and that's your primary residence and all of that, and like.
Well, we all, you know, officials.
I mean, if you think he's going to do the right thing,
conflict of interest. We all have that Form 700 that's due April 1st. So I would just keep an eye out for those.
I think these are really good things for journalists listening to pay attention to for Sean Laloe. But we do have to move on. And let's. This is going to sort of take sort of a different tone. Over the weekend. I believe it was either Saturday night or Sunday morning. A friend of the show ended up coming upon somebody who had passed in the night in Cesar Chavez Plaza. Shannon, can you provide, I guess, some context to this and just some, of course, larger context, because I know that this is something that you document probably more than anybody else on a regular basis.
Yeah. You know, I actually found out about this via Twitter on Sunday morning. There was a tweet that's yet another person experiencing homelessness had died. Their body was found in Cesar Chavez Park. We have come to find out today that person's name is John Lane. Age 63. He was found around 7:30 in the morning on Sunday. And the investigation has been handed over to Sacramento County Coroner's Office to determine what his cause of death was. But really, I mean, yeah, it has been a long year, and it's March 1st. Of people dying outside. And it, you know, it honestly feels like, for me personally, it's like every time I open up the Sacramento County Coroner's Report, there's somebody there. And
for listeners, Shannon runs Mary House, which is a daily drop-in shelter for women experiencing emergency homelessness situations over at Loaves and Fishes. And this has just sort of been a thing that you've kind of decided to start doing over the years, to start keeping track of this, right?
Yeah, I check every morning and every evening. And then what I generally do is, if it's somebody that I know or that my program knows, I send out I like eulogize the person. And this is we cannot forget there were more than 4 people. I think now it's around I'm hearing 6, maybe 7. I don't have a confirmed number of people who died the night of that awful storm on January 26th, when our city council did not open up our electeds, city leaders,
Yeah,
Howard
city,
Chan,
county, they all share
all of that,
some culpability, right?
all of the people didn't open up a warming center or any shelter of any sort for people. So I guess, what we're saying is just it's too many people. People are dying outside. It really feels like at least once a week, if not more. And there just isn't enough action that's being taken. So I know that tomorrow there is a city council meeting, and I think it's agenda item 17.
Today, if you are
Today.
listener.
We're recording on Monday night. I believe it's agenda item 17 that's going to talk about funding. There was some talk about a staff recommendation that folks wanted to pull money from the warming centers and then move that over to like sheltering situations. And, after this, John Lane passed away, died outside in the cold in the park. Council member Katie Valenzuela tweeted about it and talked directly about this staff recommendation that is being made, and essentially issued a statement of intent saying, like, there is money and we don't have to pull money away from an existing resource that helps people in order to provide more help for people.
After the storm, they told the city manager, this is free money, by the way. This is money that that the federal government will pay back in full.
Right.
After the storm, when all eyes were on the city, they told the city manager, Howard Chan, we'll give you $5 million. We'll give you a whole lot of money. And now they're trying to take money away. Now they're trying to parse it out into different places when more people are dying in the street. And this mayor, who it goes out and hops into the warming center on a night or two, or like goes out and does a press conference after the storm. After this death this weekend, he's been absolutely silent. And yet he is out there putting out press release after press release on the loss of an MLS team. This shows where his priorities are. Yeah. This guy who claims that he cares about homelessness, it's infuriating, and he does it over and over again. He's a real problem. It's just all around a real problem. Sorry, Shannon.
He did finally tweet today that his tweet says, we will not accept the status quo on homelessness, untreated mental illness, and substance addiction. The Library Galleria Warming Center reopens tonight, and we're close to opening more overnight shelters and leasing hundreds of new hotel rooms for our unsheltered residents. I have a lot of shit to say about that tweet, because you're lumping up a lot of things in with the experience of homelessness, and get at me on Twitter if you want to talk about that. But it took him, he still has not acknowledged that somebody died, right? Like somebody died, and there wasn't a warming center open that night. The warming center it died. This person died in the park across the street from where the warming center was. And there was no alternative within walking distance where there are vacant fucking buildings.
To open another center.
Just open another center.
Right.
Like, I understand, and I'm not gonna I have things to say about closing warming centers that are essential for people's survival, even, when there's a pandemic. But there are other ways. There are vacant buildings all throughout downtown. You're telling me that there wasn't one other building? There weren't any number of other staff or community volunteers that you could have activated in order to make sure that people were inside?
No, Shannon, because the Kings need to play basketball games, obviously.
Oh God, I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Priorities, duh.
And
I mean,
Disney on Ice.
And I say that as I have been a season ticket holder for the Kings, and I'm saying, fuck that. Open the place up. Your games don't matter.
I believe the Kings like 3 days ago just acknowledged you as like a great pillar of the community flow. So I think it's good that you're saying this.
Yeah, like open up your space. Like this makes absolutely no sense. I do not understand.
This is our building. We're paying for it. We, the people of Sacramento.
Right.
And that's the part that doesn't even make any more sense. It's like, okay, so are you a private organization doing whatever you want with this building, or did we pay for it as a public good and we should be able to use it when we need it? I'm confused. But it doesn't work for me that we're on the hook for the bill, but then we can't use it when you literally only need it for like 3 hours on a day when there's a game, and you only need a certain section of it because there's nobody coming to sit in the audience anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to rant a little bit, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record. And if you follow me on Twitter, I might a little bit, but after this man passed away, after Mr. Lane died in Cesar Chavez Plaza, Darrell Steinberg did not gather every leader in the region for a press conference. Gil Duran, the opinion editor of the Bee, will not be putting 3 columns dedicated to this death.
Right. Or like demanding that city officials give a statement about how they feel about it and what they plan to do about it.
Yeah. Daniel Kaufman, a well-respected community member of Third Plateau, whose wife works for the Metro Chamber, he won't come on to Twitter and break his Twitter persona and start attacking city council members for not coming out strong enough against this. But you know what these 3 people did do? All of these things when Darrell Steinberg dealt with some property damage. Right. This is what we're talking about when we say how backwards priority is, how property matters more to these people than human life. And I know we say it over and over again, but like you really have to, because people have to hear this.
And when you call it out, they say that you're the one who's messed up and who has broken form with decorum and what is right, and that your priorities are misaligned. I mean, you're so wrong that even when people call it out and explain it to you, you can't have a moment where you're like, you know what, that actually should align with my values. You double down on your nonsense.
Well,
Right.
We just came from an administration like that, so what's to say that can't happen locally too?
Yeah.
Well, they're not any. Yeah. I mean,
they control the narrative.
They control the narrative. They are capitalists by nature. The capitalists, the Mark Friedmans, the kingmakers of our region have for years and years been putting them in office. And what is up to us to do is to make sure that doesn't happen anymore, to show the kingmakers throwing all that money into their campaigns, and to organize. And that's why, Tamika, I think something like SIWD is very, very inspiring and important. And that's why I think so many people are doing the fights that they're doing, because we're finding that Katie Valenzuela and Mai Vang can get into office, and they don't have their 5 votes yet on some things, but they sure as hell are changing the conversation.
For sure.
Yeah. Shannon, what can we do? What do we do about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we have to stay loud about it. And I think that while people continue to die on our streets, while Democrats are in office, having said that they will work really hard to end the crisis of homelessness, then they should not be able to enjoy the silence of people like ourselves who have the ability to speak up, speak out, and spread the word that this is happening. And I know that we say it a lot and folks may be tired of it, but I think that we have to be on record with these demands for more and better, for justice. for equitable access to shelter and any number of other things. So writing electeds for sure. And also getting, like, if you're a member of an organization, if you have a job, if you work at a place that may sign on to a letter that is in this, the city limits, get your business or, the business that you work for to consider writing letters. I think the more people, the better, that can get behind this call, that people, like, I think of Tiffany Russell Moyer, who says humans instead of people. Like, humans are dying on the streets of Sacramento.
Yeah.
And we just need to keep amplifying the injustice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say to folks, city council members and Board of Soups folks, they are not going to City Hall or the county building right now. It is okay to demonstrate outside their homes. Do it.
Their homes are their workplaces right now.
That is their workplace right
Yeah.
now.
You can't tell people to go and demonstrate outside of City Hall when there's nobody there to care.
Don't let these very serious people tell you what is not and what is okay. It's up to you to do the good trouble, and it's up to you to decide what that is.
Yep.
Word.
While we're on this topic, I have an issue that I'm fired up about and that I am going to demand change about, which is that I frequently am subjected to extremely whack takes, and the only takes that I can find that are reliably perfect only happen once a week, and my demands are that I can hear these takes. I can have more access to these takes. I demand more access to the perfect takes. I demand to hear an hour of perfect takes twice a week as opposed to only one. And I will stop at no multiples of $5 that I'm willing to pay in order to hear those takes. So, Dave, those are my demands. Ball's in your court.
I think that's a great question. And this is something that for years and years I've been trying to figure out. How do we get to the bottom of this? Where are all these whack takes coming from, and how do we put an end to it? And, I, for years, have been demonstrating outside the Chancellor of Whack Take's house. We've been having Twitter cancellation die-ins outside of his home, and nothing seems to be working until we found a place, the royal we found a place called voicesrivercity.com. And this is a place that's just a utopia of perfect takes, really. We started almost 4 years ago now. And it was news and arts coverage. It's truth to power essays, which obviously, as you all know, we're starting up again for obvious reasons. It is the Sac Follows the Money project, which, as I was explaining earlier, it shows you where all the kingmakers are throwing their money and kind of showing you why they are not good for doing that. And then we also do, of course, the current iteration is this podcast where we have people on who tell us about the amazing things they're doing to fight really just the bastards who are running things. And we're really proud of the direction the show has gone. So, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/VoicesRiverCity, Twitter and Instagram @VoicesRiverCity. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/VoicesRiverCity. For as little as $5 a month, you can get double the podcast episodes. So you get it every Tuesday morning right there in your phone box. Otherwise, on Fridays, you can get another episode through the Patreon. And, it's just another hour of perfect takes every week, which we're really proud of. We have a little store. Have I ever mentioned our store? That's at voicesrivercity.com/shop. You can get t-shirts. You can get mugs. You can get stickers. You can get koozies. Look at this little koozie that fits perfectly a White Claw. So good things are happening. And what else is happening with Voices River City? Did I say everything?
I think you got it. Dave, where could I find your takes specifically. If I wanted to get sick of all the things you were talking about, and then when I was listening to the show, be like, oh God, he's talking about this again. What Twitter handle should I look for?
That's great. You can get sneak previews of my perfect takes on Twitter. I am at Unokempo, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
I bring my extreme demands to Twitter at Guillotine for You. That is Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
Make sure to check out those 4 a.m. takes from Skylar, and you can find my takes at Shan and D Stevens.
And you can find me at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
Tamika, how can we find you?
Tamika 916, Sacramento all the way.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Love to hear that.
As always, it is a joy to have you on. Thank you for
Yes.
everything you do,
Thank
Tamika. And thanks for being you.
Thank you. Thank you for being you. And thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you guys giving us this platform.
Speaking of appreciation, if you are listening to the show, we love and appreciate each and every one of you. And it is important to us that all of you stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from Aggie Square.
Hey,
Bam.
hey,
Bye,
all
folks.
right, perfect takes.
Oh, yeah.
You got the perfect takes.